Hey students, I'm in my backyard for today's reading. With a rainy day yesterday, I thought, I gotta get outside. Um, so, last night, I just finished chapter 5. Oh my goodness, that ends in such a thrilling way. I could not believe it. It was making me feel suspenseful about the mountain lion trying to get at Billy's pups. So it was scary. Well, I'll be reading chapter 6 to you. Now, for a point of view, you'll notice that we were able to feel how Billy was feeling because he's obviously telling the story. It's first-person point of view. So we could see that he was really upset about the mountain lion and how it said that, what did it say? About him getting madder at every second. Oh, yeah. I figured the lion had scented my pups. The more I thought about anything harming them, the madder I got. I was ready to die for my dog. So it just shows us truly how much he already loves these pups that he just got. Obviously, he's been saving years to get these pups, and they mean the world to him. Okay, so chapter 6. Here we go. After that terrifying night, the bright morning sun... Sorry, I just realized how I was reading. The bright morning sun was a welcome sight. I fixed breakfast, and soon we were on our way. I tried to get the pups to follow me so as to lighten my load. But of course, the pups aren't going to play along. Just like kids. They're like, no, Mommy, pick me up. They would for a way, and then, sitting on their rears, they would cry and whimper. Back in the sack they would go, with their heads sticking out of the holes and their long ears flopping. I moved on. About midday I entered country I knew. I wasn't far from home. I dropped down out of the mountains into the bottoms far above the place I had crossed the river on my way to town. Staying on the left of the river, I followed its course. So it's he's sticking to the river. That might be important. Passed several campgrounds, but didn't stop until I came to one where I had found the magazine. Here I took the pups out of the sack and sat down in the warm sand. As the afternoon wore on, I sat there deep in thought. I was trying to think what I was going to tell my mother and father. I could think of nothing. Finally, I decided I would just tell them the truth, and with the help of the new overalls, cloth, and candy, I would weather the storm. So it says, I would weather the storm. What do you think that means? Is there an actual storm coming? No, right. There's not an actual storm coming. They know, well, he just left without telling his mom and dad where he was going. Can you imagine, how would your parents feel if you just left for, he's been gone for at least a day, and didn't tell them where they were going? They would be calling the police, right? They'd be so worried about you. So anywho, weather the storm means, he's trying to help alleviate maybe some of the anger, not bribe them, but, give them gifts to make things better, kind of. My pups were having a big time playing. With their front paw locked around each other, they were growling and roaring, chewing on one another, just like puppies always do. They looked so cute. I laughed out loud. While I was watching their romping, the thought came, I haven't named them. I went over the list of names. For him I tried Red, Bugle, Lead, name after name as before. For her I tried Susie, Mabel, Queen, all kinds of girl names. None seemed to fit. Still mumbling names over and over, I glanced up. They carved in the white bark of a sycamore tree. There, carved in a white bark of a sycamore tree, was a large heart. In the center of the heart were two names, Dan and Ann. The name Dan was a little longer than Ann. It was wide and bold. The scar stood out more. The name Anne was small, neat, and even. I stared, unbelieving, for there were their names. They were perfect. I walked over and picked up my pups. Looking at him, I said, "Your name is Dan. I'll call you Old Dan." Looking at her, I said, "Your name is Little Girl. Your name, Little Girl, is Anne. I'll call you Little Anne." It was then I realized it was all too perfect. Here, in the fisherman's camp, I found the magazine and the ad. I looked over at the old sycamore log. There I had asked God to help me get 2 hound pups. There were the pups rolling and playing in the warm sand. I thought of the old K.C. baking powder can and the fishermen, how freely they had given their nickels and dimes. I looked up again to the names carved in the tree. Yes, it was all like a large puzzle. Piece by piece, each fit perfectly until the puzzle was complete. It could not have happened without the help of an unseen power. Do you ever have those moments where you feel like everything is just fitting together and like it happened for a reason, all the things? It's kind of what he's trying to say. I stayed at the campground until dark. I knew I had to go home, but I put it off as long as I could. Why was he putting off going home? Oh my goodness. I mean, he's been gone for so long. He's dealt with so many things. Why do you think he's putting off going home? Oh, that's right. He did not tell his parents he was leaving. Oh, and also he's bringing home 2 dogs without asking. So I guess I can see why he might be procrastinating. The crying of the pups telling me they were hungry made up my mind for me. I knew the time had come for me to face my mother and father. I sacked up my dogs and waded in the river. As I came out of the bottoms, I could see a lamplight glow from the windows of our home. One of the small yellow squares darkened for an instant. Someone had walked across the floor. I wondered who it was. I heard Daisy, our milk cow, moo. I was thinking so hard of what I would say. It startled me for a second. Reaching the gate to our house, it's building. The suspense. I stopped. I had never thought our home very pretty, but that night it looked different. Why do you think it looked maybe different that night to him? It looked clean, neat, and peaceful, nestled there in the foothills of the Ozarks. Yes, on that night I was proud of our home. So it sounds like maybe he wasn't proud of his home before, but now he is. Why do you think that might be? Could it be he's gone through a lot and he knows that he's lucky to have what he has? Or it could be, the puppies. Maybe they're making him feel more appreciative overall. He's finally gotten what he's wanted. That he's saying that God has his side and all along this was the plan. Sorry, the breeze is picking up. My bare feet made no noise as I crossed the porch. With my free hand I reached and I pulled the lever that worked the latch. Slowly the door swung inward. How do you think his parents are going to feel about this? Are they going to be mad? Are they going to be sad? Are they going to be happy? How do you think they would feel? Let's find out. I couldn't see my father or my sisters. They were far to right of me. But my mother was directly in front of the door, sitting in her old cane bottom rocker, knitting. She looked up. I saw all the worry and the grief leave her eyes. She bowed down, her head bowed down. The knitting in her hands came up to cover her face. I stepped inside the room. I wanted to run to her and comfort her and tell her how sorry I was for all the worrying and grief I was caused her. The booming voice of my father shook me from my trance. Now, what does that word trance mean? Okay, right. When you're kind of like almost like zoomed in. So he's really focused on her mom and what she's doing, but all of a sudden his father comes in and with a loud voice says, da, 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 "Well, what have you got there?" Laughing, he got up from his chair and came over to me. He reached and took the sack from my shoulder. When we started looking for you," he said, "I went to the store and your grandpa told me all about it. It wasn't too hard to figure out what you had done, but you should have told us." I ran to my mother and dropping to my knees, I buried my head in my face in her lap. As Mama patted my head, I heard her saying in a quavering voice, "Oh, why didn't you tell us? Why?" I couldn't answer. Between sobs, I heard the squeals of delight from my sisters as they fondled my pups. I heard my father say, What's this other stuff you've got?" Without raising my head from my mother's lap, in a choking voice, I said, "One is for you, one is for Mama, and one is for the girls." I heard the snapping of string and the rattle of paper. The ohs and the ahs from my sisters were wonderful to hear. Papa came over to Mama. Laying the cloth on the arm of her chair, he said, "Well, you've been wanting a new dress. Here is enough cloth to make half a dozen dresses." Realizing that everything was forgiven, I stood up and dried my eyes. Papa was pleased with his new overalls. My sisters forgot the candy. The light was shining from my mother's eyes as she fingered the cheap cotton cloth was something I will never forget. Mama warmed some milk for the pups. They drank until their tummies were tightened round. As I ate, Papa sat down at the table and started talking man talk to me. Man talk. He asked, "How are things in town?" I told him. It was boiling with people. The wagon yard was full of wagons and teams. He asked if I had seen anyone I knew. I told him I hadn't, but the station master had asked about him. He had asked me where I had spent the night. I told him about the cave in the Sparrowhawk Mountains. He said that must have been the one called Robber's Cave. My youngest sister piped up, "Did you all stay all night with some robbers?" My oldest sister said, "Silly, that was a long time ago. There aren't any robbers now." The other one put her nickel's worth in. "Weren't you scared?" "No," I said. "I wasn't scared of staying in the cave, but I heard a mountain lion scream, and it scared me half to death." "Aw, they won't bother you," Papa said. "You had a fire, didn't you?" I said yes. He said, "They'll never bother you unless they are wounded or cornered, but if they are, you better look out." Papa asked me how I liked town. I said I didn't like it at all. "So why do you think Billy didn't like town at all? What are some of the experiences that he had when he was in town? How did that go?" "Yeah, not so good. And wouldn't live there even if they gave it to me." With a querying look on his face, he said, "I'm afraid I don't understand. I thought you always wanted to go to town." "I did," I said, "but I don't but I don't anymore. I don't like the people there and couldn't understand them." "What's wrong with them?" he asked. I told him how they stared at me and how and had even laughed and made fun of me. He said, I don't think that they were making fun of you, were they? Yes, they were, I said, and to beat it all, the boys jumped on me and knocked me down into the dirt. If it hadn't been for Marshall, I would have taken a beating. Papa said, so you met the Marshal? What did you think of him? I told him he was a nice man. He had bought me a bottle of soda pop. Soda pop. Okay, so in this time period when this book exists, when the setting, this was a big deal. This was not, like some of you just go to the fridge, grab a Coke, grab a whatever. But this was a big deal back then. At the mention of soda pop, the blue eyes of my sisters opened wide. They started firing questions at me, wanting to know what color it was and what it tasted like. I told them it was strawberry, and it bubbled and tickled when I drank it, and it made me burp. The eager questions of my three sisters had an effect on my father and mother. Papa said, Billy, I don't want you to feel badly about the people in town. I don't think they're poking fun at you. Wait. You? Okay. Anyway, not like the way you think they were. Maybe they weren't, I said, but I still don't want to ever live in town. It's too crowded and you couldn't get a breath of fresh air. In a sober voice, my father said, someday you may have to live in town. Your mother and I don't intend to live in these hills all our lives. It's no place to raise a family. A man's children should have an education. They should get out and see the world and meet people. I don't see why we have to move to town to get an education, I said. Hasn't Mama taught us how to read and write? There's more to an education than just reading and writing, Pa said. Much more. I asked him when he thought we'd be moving to town. Well, it'll be some time, he said. He said. We don't have the money now, but I'm hoping someday we will. What do you think? Do you think someday they'll move to town? Let's find out. From the stove where she was heating salt water for my feet, Mama said in a low voice, I'll pray every day and night for that day to come. I don't want you children to grow up without an education, not knowing what a bottle of soda pop is, or ever seeing the inside of a schoolhouse. I don't think I could stand that. I'll just keep praying, and someday the good Lord may answer my prayer. I told my mother I had seen a schoolhouse in town. Again, I had to answer 1,000 questions for my sister. I told them it was made of red brick and was bigger than Grandpa's store, a lot bigger. There must have been at least 1,000 kids going to school there. I told all about the other teeter-totters, the swings made out of the log chains, the funny-looking pipe that ran up the side of the building, and how I climbed up it and slid out like the other kids. I didn't tell them how I came out. I think that was a fire escape, Papa said. Fire escape, I said. It looked like a slide to me. Did you notice where it made that bend up at the top? He asked. I nodded my head. Well, inside the school there's a door, he said. If the school gets on fire, they open the door and the children jump in the pipe and slide out to safety. Boy, that's a keen way of getting out of fire, I said. Well, it's getting late, Papa said. We'll talk about this some other time. We'd better get to bed, as we have a lot of work to do tomorrow. My pups were put in the corn crib for the night. I covered them with shucks and kissed them good night. The next day was a busy one, with the hampering of help of my sisters, I made the little doghouse. Aw, cute little doghouse. Papa cut the ends of his check lines and gave them to me for collars. Just in case you're wondering what a check line is, it's kind of like, I guess, rope that is used. I guess I assume it's leather because it's leather rope that they use to pull boats in. You know, when they're docking and they're trying to get them to come to place. That's what a check line is. With a painstaking care, deep in the tough leather, I scratched the name Old Dan and on one and Little Ann on the other. With a nail and a rock, 2 holes were punched in each end of the straps. I put them around their small necks and laced the ends together with baling wire. That evening I had a talk with my mother. I told her about praying for the 2 pups, about the magazine, and the plans I had made. I told her how hard I had tried to find names for them and how strange it was finding them carved in the bark of a sycamore tree. With a smile on her face, she asked, "Do you believe God heard your prayer and helped you?" "Yes, Mama," I said. "I know He did, and I'll always be thankful." Such a great way to end the book, or end the chapter. So, it seems like everything's working out for Billy right now. I mean, he's got his dogs that he's always wanted. Of course, Mama and Pa were a little upset that he didn't ask to go get his pups. But they have forgiven him, and they've actually helped him to make a comfortable home for his pups. So, what do you think this tells you about his family? How would you describe his family? Not only that, also, how much do you think Billy loves these pups? It's going to be a beautiful relationship that he has with these pups. You can read, or you can read along if you have a digital, or if you have a hard copy book for chapters 7, 8, and 9. Obviously the audio. I'm going to record chapter 10 for you guys as well, and kind of stop, ask questions, try to clarify some things that I think you might have some trouble with. There wasn't too much vocab in this chapter that I thought you would be confused about. Alright, well, I'm enjoying the book. I hope you guys are. It's like, this is where it's probably going to start getting interesting. Now he's got the pups, and now what's going to happen next? Alright, look forward to finding out. See you guys later. I miss you.